Hello, everybody. Scott Golden with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. We return with more of the World Class Championship Wrestling WCCW review series. That is as we go into the month of, or the middle of the month of July. We move into July 17th here, which is a somewhat uneventful program. I wouldn't say entirely, but certainly, we're moving towards the various factors of the eventual war between Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair. That's just about a month away here, which I have watched up through August as I do this particular review. And when we get there, I will say excitement abounds for the Flair Von Erich match, worth going out of your way to see if you have not. But we're, like I say, about a month away there, as we are want to be. But this particular program, somewhat under-eventful. Some interesting things with Al Madril, but we'll begin here. Roberto Ernesto versus Magic Dragon. It seems they have a lot of masked stars at this particular point. Magic Dragon is treated very well, but Ernesto not so well here, as Magic Dragon uses a lot of the karate moves taught to him, at least in kayfabe, by Kabuki, and we see a lot of nerve holes and a slowing down by Magic Dragon. Dragon, who is super athletic, could be doing more. We see a lot of, the double chops, the nerve holds, your basic Japanese and Far Eastern style for the time, at least in 1982. But a definitely more plodding, simplistic style than is to be expected. Ernesto does get a little bit of offense, although significantly not very much. Dragon does eventually get the win. His win is garnered through his submission hold, which he does not want to break, that spinning or kind of inverted chokehold. We move into our second match, Brian Diaz versus Captain Frank Dusek. Dusek, who did get into it with Manning, the referee, earlier, and Diaz at this point still a rookie. I think they said a few episodes ago, about a year into the career, but a lot better than a year into the career would indicate here, as he holds his own for the majority of the match. They get a lot of time out of the beginning of this, just doing a lot of very basic things, top wrist locks, arm bars, and the like, working the crowd a bit. Obviously led by Dusek. Dusek, not an old guy by any means at this point, but an older guy. And they tell a very basic story. Babyface holding on to the head, holding on to a very simplistic style, and always coming back to the holds, as is wont to do back in the 80s when you're talking about stylistically the right thing to do. Diaz does fire up pretty well, and there's a near fall with just using the weight on an attempted slam, and back to basics on the mat. I don't know if Diaz could have had a much more basic match handed to him here, but I think there's value in those style of matches. Later part of the match, we see a double underhook suplex by Dusek, which should, in theory, finish his opponent, but does not. I don't quite understand why, but then Dusek goes into a Boston Crab. The Crab is not sufficient to hold down Diaz. Diaz with a nice vertical suplex that leads him to almost get a victory here, but Dusek is too close to the ropes. Really good basic match if you are a young wrestler looking for storytelling in an episodic manner, and we do see Diaz slip by with the victory, just barely, but he does. and this is obviously too much for Dusek to handle, as he is extremely unsatisfied with this. Basically, goes one step short of throwing a temper tantrum, which he blames on the official. Who else to blame, of course? Wouldn't blame oneself, right? Suffice to say, we go into a situation where Manning has enough, actually rips his shirt off, goes right at Dusek. I wondered if this was going to lead somewhere down the road to a match. It doesn't seem to right off, but maybe it does sooner or later. Branko Luvic having to come in to settle this up. Actually, I believe there is a police officer who puffs out smoke in the middle of this. I know that there are some police officers that have to escort Manning away from the ringside area, and that is just a really well done angle from the standpoint of a surprise aspect without things going too far to the left. Larry Dwyer versus the Superfly. Of course, Superfly really replacing Bugsy McGraw in the H&H stable. Superfly, as mentioned last week, a guy in orange and black jumpsuit who is extremely large. Bugsy McGraw, wanting to cause chaos, brings a trash can full of weapons long before New Jack does, including but not limited to a 2x4. The 2x4 is something that we see Bugsy march around with a bit. This is uncomfortable for the ring announcer, who steps out of the ring during this part of the phase, and the referee has some difficulty controlling the Superfly and Arman Hussein, who is his second. Very basic match, squash intended to get Superfly over, obviously, as much as you can with a guy who is, I wouldn't say immobile, but certainly not going to do a lot of high-flying or insane moves. He is victorious in this squash match relatively simply and easily. And we see him hit a monstrous top rope splash as the way to the victory. And then we go into an interesting interview. Interesting for just bizarreness reasons, I suppose. With Al Madrill talking about Elvis Presley, being an Elvis Presley fan, having a lot of Elvis merchandise. I assume this is in the home that Madrill was living in during his time in the area. I also assume that this is meant to make Madrill seem more human and likable. I don't really understand, other than it being a time-filling piece, what else to do with it. I do know he eventually wins the Texas Championship down the road. Not a spoiler, 35 years, 37 years later, but maybe it's designed to do that. It's the first time that he is really relatable, but at the same time, kind of a odd placement for this particular portion of things. Odd in just why now, and also odd in that Elvis has been dead for several years by this point, so kind of bringing him into the story seems a little bit out of whack, and by 1982 standards, it's an ill-fitting storyline. In any event, David Manning is shown next. He basically says he's not going to back down from Frank Dusek. They show him wrestling and teaching in a high school / collegiate style setting. They show him practicing and getting ready for that. Then we go to our main event, Al Madrill versus Wild Bill Irwin. Irwin, and I'll say it again, I say it almost every review you see him on, but he is such a fantastic heel here. He's a guy that it's hard to wonder why he didn't get further in his career. To be fair, Madrill does very well with his part, shows great babyface fire, but is willing to cheat if the need arises, and when dealing with a cheater like Irwin, it does arise a bit. They go back and forth for several minutes. They're given almost 15 minutes here, and although the match is very basic, the art of selling is upheld well. They end up brawling on the outside of the ring. Damage to be done and I'm pretty sure this is a match where Madrill gets partially busted open. If not, he definitely gets, knocked around quite a bit on the brawling on the outside. Yeah, he does get busted open here, and we do see Irwin taking it to him, kind of setting up the future for the two of them. I believe the referee stops the chaos with a figure four on the floor. No real finish to the match, but both guys spend a lot of energy, literally and figuratively, in the pursuit of the match. The Irwin unhappy and dissatisfied with the official. Madrill wants more action, and we're going to get that in the weeks and months to come. But until next time, I remind you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.